And she props the Beethoven record against the pillow in the center of the bed and studied its perfection. And then she rummaged in the suitcase to see and touch all that was in it, a pair of underwear and her rhinestone butterfly and her blue skirt with the rip in it, and Francis's safety razor and his penknife and his old baseball clippings and his red shirt and his left brown shoe, the right one lost. But one shoe's better than none, ain't it? Was Francis's reasoning. Sandra lost a shoe, but Francis found it for her. Francis was very thoughtful, very everything, very Catholic, though he pretended not to be. That was why Francis and Helen could never marry. Wasn't it nice, the way Helen and Francis put their religion in the way of marriage? Wasn't that an excellent idea? For really, Helen wanted to fly free in the same way Francis did. So she remembers her old lover and then she stands up and holds the brass of the bed. Helen's feet are like fine brass. She's not unpolished like the brass of this bed. Helen is the very polished person who is standing at the end of the end bed, in the end room of the end hotel, of the end city, of the end. And when a person like Helen comes to an ending of something, she grows nostalgic and sentimental. She has always appreciated the fine things in life: music, kind words, gentility, flowers, sunshine, and good men. People would feel sad if they knew what Helen's life might have been like had it gone in another direction than the one that brought her to this room. Perhaps people would even weep, possibly out of some hope that women like Helen could go on living until they found themselves, righted themselves, discovered every unfolding joy of coming to lonely ends. People would perhaps feel that some particular thing went wrong somewhere, and that if it had only gone right, it wouldn't have brought a woman like Helen so low. But that is the error, for there are no women like Helen. And she goes on to think about her life and what she read and priests she knew. And now Helen really she thinks of priests, and she has it's a troubled time for her and her religion. And even though she prayed at Mass this morning and has prayed intermittently throughout the day ever since, even though she prayed at Mass throughout the day ever since, even though she prayed in Finney's car last night, saying her "Now I lay me down to sleep," when there was no sleep or chance of it, then the point is that despite all prayer, Helen has no compulsion to confess her sins to gain absolution. Helen has even come to the question of whether or not she's really a Catholic, and to what a Catholic really is these days. She thinks that truly she may not be one anymore. What brought her to this uncertainty is the accumulation of her sins, and if you must call them sins, then there is certainly quite an accumulation. But Helen prefers to call them decisions, which is why she has no compulsion to confess them. On the other hand, Helen wonders whether anyone is aware of how really good a life she lived. She never betrayed anybody, and that in the end is what counts most with her. She admits she is leaving Francis, but no one could call that a betrayal. One might perhaps call it an abdication, the way the King of England abdicated for the woman he loved. Helen is abdicating for the man she used to love, so he can be as free as Helen wants him to be, as free as she always was in her own way, as free as the two of them were, even when they were most perfectly locked together. Didn't Francis beg on the street for Helen when she was sick in 1933? Why, he never begged even for himself before that. If Francis could become a beggar out of love, why can't Helen abdicate for the same reason? And so when The crippled Donovan knocks again at 11 o'clock and asks if Helen needs anything. She says, "No, no, thank you, old cripple. I don't need anything or anybody anymore." And old Donovan says, "The night man's just coming on, and so I'm heading home. I'll be here in the morning." And Helen says, "Thank you, Donovan. Thank you ever so much for your concern and for saying goodnight to me." And after he goes away from the door, she lets go of the brass and thinks of Beethoven, Ode to Joy. And she hears the joyous multitudes advancing. Da, 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 da. And feels her legs turning to feathers and sees that her head is floating down to meet them as her body bends under the weight of so much joy. Sees it floating ever so slowly as the white bird glides over the water until it comes to rest on the Japanese kimono that has fallen so quietly, so softly, onto the grass where the moonlight grows.
Yeah, you want to sing?
No.